Hey Dave, when was the last time you were in an actual dungeon delve?
I don't know, Ted. Let us talk about and discuss, are there still dungeons in Dungeons and Dragons?
I'm Nerdarchy Ted.
I'm Nerdarchy Dave. Welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds.
Well, let us delve into that dungeon.
All right, let's start off and kind of like define a dungeon. What do we consider a dungeon? Because a lot of things can actually act like a dungeon.
So realistically, I think a dungeon is when you've got, multiple rooms, lots of monsters, treasure. It takes, a session or more just to get through everything that's there. It's not, one of these, one and done kind of rooms that, we've tended to use in our games.
Yeah, and I guess that could be like traditional, which we, a crypt, a complex cave system all would be like kind of traditional dungeons, but shipwrecks, coral reef labyrinths, crash starships could all be some like non-traditional things that could act as dungeons as well.
I guess it really, goes into question of like, if we're not doing these kinds of things, how many people out there are? What treasures can you actually go and find if you're not actually, delving these dungeons?
That's a good point, Ted. If you are delving those dungeons, you are going to want to be able to stock those dungeons with cool treasures, like from Azador's Vault of Tragic Treasure, the sponsor for this video, a a whole tome of magic items. What else can they find over there, Ted?
So not only are you going to be able to find the Tome of Tragic Treasure, but the Order of Elemental Chaos. This Kickstarter is designed to be able to give you the magic items and adventures to be able to grab those things. The Tragic Treasures are great because they've got some mysterious or tragic lore attached to them, or, maybe some interesting side effects for actually using them. There's a whole bunch of stretch goals planned to be able to unlock magic item cards, dice, all kinds of fun things. You got to go check out this Kickstarter. Link is going to be down in the description below.
So I guess the question is, why do we feel like there's less dungeons in Dungeons and Dragons nowadays?
You know, I mean, just the style of play, at least in the groups that we tend to work with, don't really go in that direction. While there's a lot of things that still happen in, some adventure league and the pre-planned adventures, the homebrew style that we tend to use, doesn't really take into consideration of, well, let's just sit in a dungeon and have these conversations. There's more role playing and less combat and less, dungeons to explore.
So as you say, maybe because games have gone more in a narrative direction, at least for us, for us personally, I mean, we'll have a dungeon and like our dungeons will be like 3 rooms, right? Like they're like little bitty tiny mini dungeons. They're not the full fledged, okay, you're going to be slogging through this for weeks upon weeks in out of game time, and maybe even in game time. It's just not something that comes up in our games. Matter of fact, let us know in the comments below, how has your gaming evolved? How is your game reflected? Reflecting dungeons. Are you using them? Are you not using them? How often? Let us know below.
While you're down there, don't forget to do all those things that make YouTube happy. Like, share, subscribe, even attune to that notification bell.
Yeah, and a quick reminder, we drop new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Come on back to the channel and see what's new. Let's talk about how we're currently using dungeons in our games.
So, as you kind of brought up, we do like to do things a little bit more narrative. The combat after combat after combat just doesn't appeal to the style of game that we're into. The actual playtime we do tends to be smaller. We used to have no problems getting together and gaming for like 4 to 6 to 8 hours. Now it's more like 3 to 5 for our off camera sessions, and our on camera sessions tend to be like 2 to 3 tops. So those kinds of things have definitely streamlined what the game length is. And if you're going to do that, you still want to incorporate all the things in the game: exploration, combat, and RP. Well, if a combat takes 45 minutes and you're only gaming for 2 to 3 hours, it's not possible to really have 3, 4, 5 combats without them just stringing one after the other with nothing in between. And then there's no time for exploration, no time for role playing. So if we cut down to just one, that obviously has to change what the layout of our thing of our session, our material notes are, because if you only got one combat, how can you do a dungeon delve?
Yeah. And that being said, I don't know that it matters per se, right? Because I just feel like maybe the game's getting played a little bit differently. Especially if you're doing homebrew. Maybe it's different if you're playing in more written material. Like I think you play in a lot more written material than I do. We did, we've done a little bit in our Curse of Strahd game, but even then, like even those spaces seem smaller than the traditional dungeons I'm used to from when I used to play as a kid. And we even like gloss over stuff and blow through it. I mean, we kind of did our last dungeon as a montage. Like the GM is like, you found everything of any real interest in here. Um, and you feel free to explore if you want to, but there's just not really a whole lot of point to it. And and I feel like that was okay because like the group that was playing in that game, like we kind of understand each other as gamers and know that like that GM knew that we wouldn't really enjoy that as much. So like everybody was on board and okay with them kind of fast tracking that part of the adventure. Like we could go through 50 empty rooms, but why? That's not why that particular group gets together to play.
Now in the Dawnbringers game that I play on Thursday nights over on Mini Terrain Domain, which you can see on Twitch, or the after show on YouTube, that is prepared material that is heavily modified for our group. And Heart of the Nightfang Spire, which was a previous edition module that he rewrote for 5th edition for us, and that was absolutely 100%. The entire season was a dungeon crawl. It was crazy, and all of the RP just was with each other, and a couple minor things that wind up transpiring within the dungeon. So that definitely offers its challenges. I know when I was running the Chaos Crew with prepared material through RPG Crate, there was definitely dungeons, there were definitely things, but those things are again written to encompass multiple sessions or really long sessions if you're going to try and bum rush through it. And I had told the players, I'm like, that's not really what I'm looking to run. How do you feel if we kind of trim this down? So some things I did with player agency, where I allowed the players, I just described, this is what the fight scene is. You guys tell me what happened, and I adjudicated what happened. Based on what that was. We fast tracked certain combats and just said, okay, this is what the challenge was. How do we slim this down to just a couple of rolls? But for the most part, I just try to like, all right, what is the most important combat of this material, and I'm going to run that. Everything else, I'm just going to push aside and have it not be important, because for the viewers that are going to watch the game, that's what they want to see. They want to see the most important parts and not every little detail that comes along with it. So you definitely have to look at how the material is being presented and how you want to use it in however you're going to use it.
Yeah, I remember you telling me a story where you guys spent like a whole session outside, like, or just inside the dungeon, like the first room. You never left. You never went anywhere. So you never got anything done because you're role playing and exploring that little tiny area. And like, it's a nightmare to think of doing a whole dungeon that way. And also, there's a huge difference between like stream games and your home games, right? Stream games, again, you have to think about an audience, people watching. Is it entertaining to go through slog through combat after combat? It might be a bit more fun if you're just playing at home with your buddies at your table. But even then, like, it depends on your group. What is your group interested in doing? If they rather be exploring and doing role playing, then combat after combat is going to wear on them. And like Ted said, like we don't play as long as we used to. Like back in the day, people would show up at my house at like 3, 4 in the afternoon, and we would play until the sun came up, right? So doing a dungeon crawl wasn't a big deal. But like if we play for a long time, it's like people show up at 6, we eat dinner together, then we game until 11, 12 at night. And and also there's side talk in there. It's not like we're gaming for a solid 6 hours or 5 hours. If we're there for 5 or 6 hours, we gamed probably for 3 or 4. And like you said, an encounter can take 45 minutes. 30 minutes to an hour is pretty much what I was thinking, right? And you went right in the middle. So if you do 3 encounters and they average 45 minutes, like right there, that's over 2 hours of just straight up combat. So it becomes very time intensive. And as we've gotten older, we've moved away from that being the most important aspect of the game. Now, we ran a couple polls over on social media, one on our YouTube page, which we got a decent sampling of, and one over on Twitter, which, we'll throw these images up and you can kind of see for yourself. We didn't get, we ran that one kind of short and didn't get that much of a sampling from it. But like the results over on YouTube, 3,000, 3,100 people weighed in on it. And like every session dungeon, 5%, never 4%, right? Which I found that really interesting, right? Because those numbers are really super close, opposite ends of the spectrum. And then, every couple sessions and not very often, 45%, 46%. So it was kind of interesting to see from that sampling of what people are actually doing in their game. So, it feels like dungeon exploring, dungeon crawling overall has kind of gone down. Now on Twitter, it was a little bit different, but again, we only had 126 votes. So I don't know how much we can really use this data point.
But for both categories, the every couple sessions was the higher threshold.
Yeah.
Which means it's still out there, but it's not the bulk of what the game is. And legitimately, that is how Dungeons and Dragons got its start. Was there was no let's talk in town. The town was kind of hand waved. You started at the dungeon, and that was the game.
Yeah, it's really changed from there. But so now I would say, like, for even our own games, it's like every like 3 sessions, I think we probably throw in a dungeon-esque structure. But again, like the dungeons that we're using are really abridged in comparison to what we used back in the day when you're getting out graph paper and you're drawing these enormous sprawling complexes. Even when I've put them in my more recent games, my players have found ways to fast track the dungeon to do what they needed to do and continue the story, right? So the way the players are playing the game is different. The way DMs are running the game is different. I'm sure there might be some OSR and old school folks that are kind of still doing it the way we did back in the day, which is fine. But it's interesting to see how the game's kind of evolved and what people are doing with it, especially with, the popularity of shows like Critical Role, where we're seeing like these games that are very narrative driven. And I think people are digging it and they're emulating that.
I would wholeheartedly agree. And as you see more and more emulation, more and more people, making this deviation from what was the norm, I think it's only going to, change and keep going down that road. And, you're going to see, the concept of we're going to spend, 4 or 5 sessions in a dungeon, just to get to, this boss. I think that's going to be a thing of the past.
You might be onto something there, Ted. Hey, if you enjoyed this video and you want another one with dungeons as a topic, check out Better D&D Dungeons, tips for players and dungeon masters.
And if you'd like to help us keep making videos like this, why not check us out and support us over on Patreon.
As a thank you, receive monthly 5e content for players and DMs alike, a chance to game with us, and more.
So until next time, stay nerdy.